My name is Lynn Coles, and I'm a Health and Food Justice Programs Manager with Every Texan. I like Progress Texas because I think that there is no better organization to organize people around media around the state, and the content that y'all create is so easily accessible for people and for sharing. Trust the people you love and build trust with others.
It's Wednesday, March 11, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch. Rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Here at Progress Texas, we built a statewide audience. We reach millions of Texans monthly, and that's thanks to folks like you who invest in independent progressive media by Texans for Texans. Our thanks to Mary Sisson, Roy Bishop, and Robert Clifford for their ongoing sustaining support. We got a fair amount to cover today, starting with new polling. That itself has come under some degree of partisan scrutiny. Stephen Artery at Fox 4 TV in Dallas reports on a new Texas public opinion research poll showing Ken Paxton leading Senator John Cornyn by 8 points, leading into the May primary runoff between the two, including an interesting angle. Voters were asked how an endorsement from Donald Trump would impact their decision in this election. Crunching that, a Paxton endorsement by Trump would far extend his lead over Cornyn, while a Trump endorsement of Cornyn would fall short of covering the 8-point margin that already exists. This poll, in short, shows John Cornyn dead in the water this May. Considering that, let's review Paxton's offer to drop out of this race if Cornyn helps to get the Save America Act passed in the U.S. Senate. Again, this new law would give Donald Trump immense power to, quote, take over, unquote, the midterm election, as he has openly pledged to do, by even temporarily stopping people from voting in November by calling their citizenship into question. If one buys this polling, Senator John Cornyn is now facing an existential dilemma. Advocate for killing the filibuster to pass the SAVE Act, which would open the Republicans to all manner of potential Democratic steamrolling in the future, or stick to his guns on the filibuster and head into a primary runoff in May that by this polling he is highly unlikely to win. This is one scary moment for your voting rights, and it comes while our president is starting foreign wars and desperate himself to avoid accountability for a wide range of misdeeds, including whatever he was doing with Jeffrey Epstein back in the day. Cornyn has attacked this polling, by the way, somewhat lamely, you ask me, on the mere involvement of Texas Democratic politico Luke Warford, who's listed as the director and only named team member on TPOR's website. Speaking of the Iran war, new analysis from the Texas Tribune and writer Paul Kobler says Texas oil companies and investors are probably not grumbling too much about it, at least not yet. The U.S.-Israel conflict with Iran has created volatile energy market disruptions, which have quickly led to higher profits for Texas oil concerns. Of course, while Texas gas prices are dramatically spiking for the rest of us. Yesterday, they hit an average of $3.21 per gallon. Should the conflict become prolonged, which is starting to seem likely given the lack of any real exit plan from Donald Trump, we're now looking at potential spikes in excess of the 2022 energy crisis, primarily due to 20% of global oil supply now at risk in the Strait of Hormuz, dead center of the war zone. So Texans, get used to paying more at the pump without regard to day-to-day news from the Middle East, by the way. As they say, gas prices typically go up like a rocket and fall like a feather. All this weird anti-Islamic rhetoric and panic over Sharia law in Texas coming from our Republican electeds and candidates lately, by the way, seems to make a degree of sense now that a war of adventure has gotten underway in the global seat of Islam. One might think our conservative counterparts are trying to normalize expressions of irrational fear and hatred and eventual discrimination against Muslim Texans, and that's underway already, really. As seen in a new Washington Post story regarding our new private school voucher scam, state officials have now excluded about 24 Islamic schools in Texas from our $1 billion voucher program for allegedly being linked to terrorist groups, a decision that's led to at least one lawsuit and growing claims of discrimination from the Texas Muslim community. Texas Republicans are lately not only after people of religious faiths they find different from their own, they're also trying to set a precedent for legal attacks against folks of progressive predilections, including you, dear listener, and yours truly. Attorney Legion Miller joined host Mary Harris on a recent episode of Slate's What Next podcast to discuss the pivotal federal trial that continues in Fort Worth in regard to the July 4th, 2025 protest at an ICE detention center in Dallas. The event itself involved property damage and a non-lethal shooting of a police officer. Serious business, to be sure. But Miller and Harris focus in here on Trump's federal prosecutor's aggressive attempt to use this case to establish a legal precedent for criminalizing progressive ideology. They've labeled this group of defendants a North Texas Antifa cell, moving beyond the specific crimes at hand to pursue charges characterized as material support for terrorism, in a strategy that's resorted to mining the defendants' personal lives for First Amendment protected activity, such as possessing anarchist zines or participating in left-leaning social media chats. Miller notes that meanwhile, the Trump administration is also leveraging executive orders and broad memos, using concepts like anti-capitalism and gender extremism as an excuse to escalate minor crimes like spray painting graffiti into life-altering terrorism offenses. The trial itself has an impact even prior to its final decision, as federal prosecutors attempting to prove a coordinated Antifa conspiracy despite evidence of a disorganized social circle is a clear effort to create a chilling effect on the personal daily behavior of their political opposition. Again, you and me, simply via the threat of establishing precedent that would allow the labeling of loosely tied leftist protesters as domestic terrorists, potentially landing them in lifelong databases that would lead to regular ongoing scrutiny and surveillance, effectively weaponizing the American legal system against progressive political beliefs. A freaky listen indeed from the What Next podcast. See the link in the show notes and check it out after we're done here. And finally this morning, questions remain over the fate of all those votes cast in Dallas County after 7 p.m. on primary election day just over a week ago, before Ken Paxton and the Texas Supreme Court intervened to sideline those votes. Maria Trahan Martinez at KERA in Dallas says county officials there are continuing to audit the nearly 2,000 ballots in question, which were also cast amidst extra confusion resulting from the local Republican Party's decision to push for separate partisan primary elections and a computer system crash at the Dallas County Elections Department to boot. As far as the math, currently the election results do not appear close enough for about 2,000 votes to change the outcome of any major contest, including high-profile statewide primaries. But in a way, that's beside the point. Paxton, the Texas Supreme Court, and Republicans in general have demonstrated for us in real time, in a real election, that they are not squeamish in the least about stealing votes from Texans on technicalities. Even now, there's still no clarity from the courts on whether these votes will end up officially counting in the final totals, but the Dallas County Ballot Board continues to verify and count them. Progress Texas is working hard to expand our top-rated podcast network to include Spanish-speaking media to increase the reach of our progressive messages daily. Click the link in the show notes to make your donation towards Spanish media today. And we invite you to snag some merch to match your progressive values at our web store. It's live and ready for you to grab some newly released Humans Against Abbott, Y'all Means All, and Rovolution shirts, stickers, and buttons. Hit the web store at ProgressTexas.org to support your favorite podcast network today. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Wednesday, March 11th. 2026. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Our mission at Progress Texas is to improve and save Texans' lives by acting on our shared bold progressive values, and that starts with countering the billionaire and corporate-funded conservative disinformation machine. Progress Texas is an independent, nonprofit, rapid response media organization. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media in action in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a terrific day. We'll see you again right here tomorrow morning.